And hello, welcome to the Sutliffian Report. Today, I have a number of topics. Among them is we are going to be talking about the coincidental attacks on the. I don't have another word to describe them. We have explosions. We have planes falling into them. This is 18 within the past. I think it's past. I'd say past 6 months. If I'll double check that figure, but we'll have Jeff Reynolds joining us at 6:30. I'm going to be talking about Antifa and my 4-year anniversary of an attack, and the police win. So you'll get to see that, and thank God for that. And then after we have Jeff Reynolds on, I'm going to be talking about Islam and the destruction of women, and its willful destruction of women. But this is a Christian news show, and I always start with talking about something from the Word of God. Today I have Matthew 5, 1-2. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountainside. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him. And he opened his mouth, and I'm trying to get my cursor to work, sorry about that. And he opened his mouth and taught them, saying, you are probably wondering, you're probably wondering why I stopped there. We're about to talk about the Beatitudes. This is just the introduction, but it is here. One of the most awesome points of this story hit me. As a young college student studying the Bible, I found Dietrich Bonhoeffer's book, The Cost of Discipleship, and read his introduction to this. My whole world changed. All my little bit of life up to that point, I think I was, 18, 19? Maybe. I mean, all my little bit of life at that point, no one had told me that the Sermon on the Mount was not given to the masses. It was given to the disciples. Jesus left the multitudes and went up into the mountains. And when his disciples came to him, he opened his mouth and taught them. This message, this sermon was for those who are disciples. It was not for those who turn the switch off the moment they leave the church. It was for those whose lives are the embodiments of Christ. Why did this hit me so? To me, it changed the meaning of the message, and it made it more focused. The audience changed from hundreds, and maybe even thousands, to just 12. At the most, think about that. That's huge. This message was to those who knew him. The message was to those who not only knew him, but lived a life dedicated to him. Political leaders, corporate leaders, business consultants, even pagans cite the Beatitudes as examples of those who we should be and how we should live. But if this message was only given to the disciples, it was only spoken to them. Does the meaning change and intensify? Absolutely. This message wasn't even for the pretenders who show up at church because they think it's the right thing to do. It's for you if you're a follower of Jesus. So I want you to think about that, and let's just pray. Lord, you're the one who saved even me, Lord. You gave us life that we might have life. You took our sins upon yourself that we might be offered a chance to become yours. Lord, we're learning that you even gave a special message just to us who believe, just to us who know what you've done for us. Lord, help us to live as an example of your love, that each of us might be a shining lamp in the darkness that points the way to you. Lord, prepare us that we might take this special message to others. In your name, Lord Jesus, amen. Wow. I mean, this is my 4th anniversary of being in Toronto, Canada, when Antifa decided to attack. Not many opportunities to see Antifa attack there, but this was a once in a lifetime where you get to watch Antifa try to hurt cops, and they got their butts beat. And all we could say was thank you to the cops beating. They were trying to attack us. They were trying to stop our right of way. Now, in Canada, if you try to stop someone's right of way, That's a serious crime. I think that has to do with there's wilderness there, but it's considered it's almost like a felony in Canada. We don't expect that, but that's what it is. So I'm going to share this video, and I'm going to hope it does well. We'll see. And it's not very long, but here we go. Now, this was taken right after it, and it's because, I was 4 years ago, I wasn't learning. I didn't know much about video. And I was doing this live in a car. I was being interviewed by Vlad Tepes' blog. So here we go. My name is Paul Sutliff. I'm the author of the book, Civilization, Jihad, and the Myth of Modern Islam. And I was invited by Pegida Canada to come today and give a speech on Civilization Jihad at the event. Respectfully, the event was moved from Yonge Street to another park. And that was done out of respect for the horrible slaughter terrorist act that happened this Monday. So I gave my speech through the nasty ignorance of Antifa. The police did an outstanding job protecting us, keeping us safe. The Toronto police did provide a safe space for us to be, and that's something to be said.
That's for sure true. It's all you can ask for these days. So why was Pegida holding this event? It was because of the truck attack on Monday?
No, this event had been planned for a couple months.
Okay.
Because I know I had planned. We've been planning about 2 months now, right? Yeah, about 2 months we've been planning this event. And it's been every so often they just hold an event, and the purpose is to inform Canadians of what Sharia is and what the Islamists in power in the Canadian government are currently doing, including Iqra Khalid and others that were mentioned and named by Jennifer Hill, who did give an outstanding speech.
Oh, fantastic. So what happened? Antifa didn't appreciate your presence there. You were a speaker, and what happened?
During the speeches, they were loud, obnoxious, and something. But when Pegida traditionally does a march, and when they started the march, things were okay. The police were put in front of us. They moved in front of us. The reason the police moved in front of us is because Antifa tried to cut us off. So if Antifa started to form a line, we were coming towards, what's the name of the street? Towards Queen Street. As we approached Queen Street, Antifa formed a line and used flagpoles as en masse, trying to stop the police who were in front of us on bicycles. Then they ended up fighting with the police. The police took them down. It was like a dog pile. They had 3 of them down in cuffs. The rest of them were screaming and yelling, help, blaming us for everything.
That's what Antifa does. Start riots and then blame other people for what happens.
It was a little scary to watch it happen, but the police were there. They kept us safe. And I was right there. You'll see the video. I was right there. Thank you for all you've done. This was my video that it was live from my phone at that time.
Thank you, boys.
Do I get to run?
No.
They're coming.
Not fine. Now watch on the left what happens. And I caught this. You see these people running up on the side? The police caught it too. It didn't make any sense. There was no reason for them to run ahead of us. We were leaving. This kid's trying to get ahead to do something.
No. Let them get in front of us.
Let the cops stay ahead.
Yep, let the cops stay ahead.
Hinduism is the way, folks. If you converted to Hinduism, you would be on that side.
You're going to hear this guy later, and I'll tell you a story why I think it's funny.
Yeah, he's a Hindu. The Hindu evangelists are very, very rare. If they try to stomp us, they can arrest them.
We have laws in Canada.
Only in a month.
We gotta go that way.
They're denying right of way. The sun coming up. They're trying to deny our right of way. This is Canada, and we have Antifa trying to deny our right of way. We'll see if the police act here.
Yeah! Get in front of us, yeah! There you go, yes!
Thank you.
Thank you! Thank you,
God bless you, policemen. You're fine.
Kick him in the head!
Don't. God bless you guys. Thank you. Thank you.
No!
Thank you, gentlemen.
What are you arguing back now?
That side. Oh, shut says
Thank you, Officer Shorey. Thank you.
As you could see, it was pretty wild. It it was kind of mind blowing when I thought about it, but and all that happened, these Antifa decided to hit a cop with a flagpole, and it was on from there. And I have to tell you, just a few months before that, in London, the police had received an order to step back from, my understanding was, the mayor's office in London, Ontario. So they stepped back, and one of the Antifa members came up and punched a 70-year-old man in the head. So a policeman jumped on his bicycle, tackled the guy until he was crying like a baby, and you don't hit. I mean, it just shows you their cowardice. They were going after. All I was there for, and the reasons I had been going to Canada, was for one purpose. That purpose was to talk about the dangers of losing their freedom of speech. Now, I had been going for about a year at that point, somewhere around a year. We had started in London, Ontario, and that was 2017. Yeah, 2017 we started going to London, Ontario, and speaking, because the whole concept of losing your freedom of speech, and these are my friends from across the pond. I mean, literally, I'm on one side of Lake Ontario. I'm pretty much on the beach on Lake Ontario, and these guys are on the other side. London's more east, but not across the lake. But Ontario is straight across from me, and I thought about what happens if Canadians lose their freedom of speech, and that it becomes illegal to insult Islam. That's what this was all about. And that's why I kept going to give speeches, because they really didn't have very many people to talk on that. And we don't think about those simple things. What happens if we lose our freedom of speech? And they're trying to pass laws here to outlaw us. They're still working on that in Canada. So I don't know if anybody wanted to ask any questions about that. We have a little bit of time before our guest joins us. All right. Okay.
Well, I was just going to ask, what here in the United States, there's been, didn't Hillary try to get something pushed through? Was it like 213 resolution 213, or was that a Canadian thing?
Canada was
M109.
a motion. It was a motion. Here there were attempts. There have been attempts. There have been actual bills that have been proposed that would limit our freedom of speech. There's been, I believe, at least one a year since even during George W. Bush's time. There were some proposed bills that would limit our freedom of speech, and it really took off under Obama. But it's scary. I mean, to think about losing that. Now, I'm just going to put in the chat room before I forget. I'm going to highlight, I just got to highlight this. I'm going to put the link to that where you can find this video, the whole video. I only took about 6 or 7 minutes of it. And there's more video of me being interviewed through this. And I just found it entirely, the whole experience kind of shocking. It scared me. I'll be honest, it scared me. I didn't know what to think. And then we went back, I think once, and I was supposed to go back in the following, in January or February, I was supposed to go back. However, I got injured that December. That's where I had my meniscus and my ACL torn. The one event we missed, Antifa was throwing cement blocks at people's heads, and they would chase them down, and the police were not helping. They were not being the friends that they had been. So I just look at that was God's provision for us not to be there. But I have to say, it makes me and my friend, my friend Helen, who was there with me. I don't drive, so Helen drove me there, and we had a great time with our Canadian friends, the Patriots up there. But that stuff just was scary. Hi, Jeff. We're just waiting for you to connect your phone or your computer. Okay.
That was UN Resolution 1618, by the way, that I was thinking that
Yes.
Hillary had tried to push through to limit criticism.
There's no better word to describe that woman. We don't know how many people. Yeah, that's a nice description of her. It's being kind, actually, because the stuff she's involved in is scary. The one thing I said is kind of humorous. Now, if I was to play that back, you would hear somebody that I said he's a Hindu evangelist. That's pretty rare. Well, he had said all these things. Well, if you become Hindu, you'll become peaceful. And did you hear that voice saying, kick him in the head? That was the same guy. So Helen and I to this day will talk about this person, you know, accept Hinduism, become peaceful, then kick him in the head. And
Well, then they were accusing you guys of being anti-Hindi bigots or something. I heard
they
shouting.
accused us of being anti-Muslim bigots. That's what they were calling us racist. They were calling us all sorts of things. So they called us socialists and communists. But the funny thing was, it was either this event or an event shortly before it that we actually caught the police beforehand, and we talked to them about, this is at the event, they had we were off to the side, and at this particular place there was a big celebration of Vietnamese celebrating being free of communism. It was Vietnamese or Koreans, I can't remember which one. There are a huge amount of people there. It was probably about 2,000, 3,000, maybe 5,000 people there celebrating being free of communism. Well, Antifa generally carried these signs that said, they were communists. So we asked the police to inform Antifa not to carry those signs so they won't get their butts kicked. and the police did that. And it saved a lot of problems. So, we did what we could to keep Antifa safe. Yet they still, I think that was the same day. We're just waiting for Jeff to come back. He's come back and he hasn't been able to connect his device. So I haven't figured out why.
Is he coming up on StreamYard or how's he?
Oh, he's coming up on StreamYard. But let's see.
Well, didn't you have somebody last week that couldn't connect and then you had to go through BTR audio? Was that last week?
Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. We'll do that if we have to.
That is Andrew Herod. Is that what that was? Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, that was Andrew. But he was up, but his sound wasn't coming up. I think that was his device. So I don't know what it is, but let me see. I'm going to take a look and see if there's anything. I don't see him. He popped up a couple of times. We're just waiting. He has to connect a mic, or he has to. I thought you could just do this easily through your phone. We see all our other friends who do that.
Sure. I wander around on the phone myself.
So I don't know. Well, hopefully he'll be able to join us. I have some good questions for him. Before that comes up, while we're waiting for him, I do have one other thing that we could talk about, which is the Peter principle. You rise to the level of your incompetence. Well, this week, DHS, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas he delivered a carefully crafted statement to Congress on what he considers the largest threat facing America. And the Democratic person who's introducing him, Democrat representative, says it's racism. Well, Mayorkas says this. In the years immediately following the September 11th terrorist attack, the department focused on foreign terrorists who sought to harm us within our borders and threatened our interests abroad, said Mayorkas in his written testimony. This threat, you did get in. See?
I'm sorry.
Okay. This threat, Mayorkas says, evolved into homegrown violent extremists. He calls them HVEs. The individuals in America who are primarily inspired by foreign terrorist organization ideology. That still means that we're talking about Islamic terrorists. And they're talking about the foreign terrorist organizations. And then he goes on and he says, and has continued to evolve to include those fueled by a wide range of violent extremist ideologies and grievances, including domestic violent extremists. So he just proved himself to be pretty ignorant, unfortunately. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
All right. So let me introduce Jeff. Jeff is the author of the book Behind the Curtain, Inside the Network of Progressive Billionaires and the Campaign to Undermine Democracy. which is available on whoownsthedems.com. I love that name, by the way, that website.
Yeah, thanks for the shout out. I appreciate that. It was something that I wanted to do for a long time, and it was the hardest thing I ever did because there's just it's crammed full of information.
Well, Jeff, I invited you on the show because of your article. Can someone explain why so many food processing plants are blowing up? In PJ, it was in pjmedia.com. So if you want to take a look at that, please go do that. This was something many of us were looking for. In fact, I was just talking to Dr. Kufarphobia about it the day before I saw your article, and it was just funny because he brought it up, and I was like, I don't know, and then your article appeared the next day. It's like, okay. So for those of you who are listening, we're not talking about conspiracy. Jeff is not one of those conspiracy nutcases. He's just asking questions because there just seems to be so many coincidences. And if you listen to, if you're a policeman, if you're into criminal investigations, you always say there's no such thing as a coincidence because it's too convenient. Am I right, Eric? You were an MP.
I was talking to my wife about this last night because she had never heard of it, and I said, well, Google it and look it up. And she says, okay, well, and she starts going down the list, and she goes, okay, this one was hit by a plane. And then I asked her, I said, what's the likelihood of a food processing plant being hit by a plane? And she's like, about 0. Very good. Okay. How about 2? How about 2 food processing plants being hit by planes and catching them on fire? Now, what's the likelihood of that? She goes, that just ain't going to happen. Yeah, I said, exactly right. So there's, we took our tinfoil hats off, we put them in the river in the back of the truck, and then we kept driving on. But this is exactly the type of statistic. There is no coincidence. Something is going on, and he's absolutely right to be looking at it.
So I want to start by reading the beginning of his article so people understand this, because I love the way you introduced this, Jeff. He writes, a weird trend has emerged over the past few months that seems statistically, and thank you, Eric, for that introduction to this, statistically unlikely. A number of factories, logistical centers, food processing plants that have caught fire or exploded, including 2 that had planes crash on them. There we go with those planes. More and more people have noticed and wondered about the trend on social media. Of course, this has caused the conspiracy theorists to come out in force. So one must make a sober assessment without jumping to conclusions. But man, this is weird. With all the negative pressures on our economy and supply chains, and even Joe Biden talking about global food shortages over the next several months, one has to wonder what's going on here. So with that said, Jeff, you said there were about 18 of these strange coincidences. Can you please let people know what we're talking about?
Yeah, and in fact, I simply cited a tweet that I saw that was making the rounds that cited 18 incidences. There are actually several more than that, including one that just happened a day or 2 ago in England. And we're seeing food riots in Peru, and we're seeing, obviously, in the Ukraine conflict, there are a lot of targets there, and a food processing warehouse district was completely shelled. So there's some that are explainable, but there's a lot of them that are not. And so this one in the second plane crash actually was an odd one. So the first one was in Idaho. There was this gal who was contracted to fly UPS freight back and forth, and she was landing at the local airport, and there's a weird approach with the smokestack from the plant, and so that one was kind of explainable. But then, a week later, in the outskirts of Atlanta, another plane crashed on top of a General Mills plant and caught it on fire. And so there are all kinds of weird things going on, and I don't have an explanation for it. And I'm not implying an explanation either, but it's just really weird to look at the numbers here. It seems, now I've seen a couple of rational explanations for this too. One fellow says that it's deferred maintenance, possibly due to COVID and such, and that seems reasonable. A lot of folks were out of work or working remotely or laid off, but the entire food industry was deemed essential jobs, right? Essential work. So none of those people were laid off or told not to come to work. So that doesn't necessarily hold water. And it may just be the norm. It may be a statistical anomaly, but it's kind of weird how I've been watching this for a couple of months now. I see these fires and I think that's kind of weird, and that's kind of weird, and then it starts adding up, and then all of a sudden on social media, a bunch of conservative center right pundits started noticing the same thing, and it's just like, yeah, this is really weird. This doesn't just happen, it just seems if it feels statistically incorrect, there's probably, instinctually something there, so I don't know the numbers of the normal number of food processing plants that blow up. There's a potato chip plant in eastern Oregon that had a boiler explode. I don't know how many of those things happen on a regular basis, but it just seems out of the ordinary. And as I mentioned, right, we saw today the economic numbers show that what we all know is that our economy is not growing; it's actually shrinking. So we are in recession. We have been in recession. They've been lying about whether we're in recession or not. And we've heard for a year or two about the pressures on supply chains and shortages in grocery stores, and inflation has taken over and taken root. So all of these things are adding up, and then you see all these other things going on with these disasters at food processing plants. And at the very least, if it's all happening at once just out of a statistical anomaly, it's still going to put a lot of pressure on all of our food, supply chains and all that other stuff that we're struggling with already.
Well, you quoted a tweet by Phil Mortensen that said USDA data says there are 34,661 food and beverage processing facilities in the U.S. And then he said 0.005% of facilities were affected. Really?
Well, and that's, you take the surface level statistics and you say, oh, well, that's not very much. You're just being a conspiracy theorist, right? But, 2 airplanes hitting the food processing plants within a week, that's out of the ordinary. That's not normal, right? And again, it just may be statistically explainable, but it seems like something's not right. And the actual number is over 36,000 now, but it depends on what you're talking about too. You can lump all those in together like the USDA website does and say there are 36,000 plus food processing plants across the United States. Yeah, but they don't all do the same thing, right? So there were a couple of potato processing plants in eastern Oregon and Idaho that were affected, and then there was it was a General Mills cereal plant that the second plane ran into in Atlanta or outside of Atlanta. And then the morning I published that article, there was another one in Iowa, another General Mills plant that does, I believe it was grains or cereals as well, So, and then there was just one, like I said, earlier this week in England. Maybe, I mean, I suppose the food processing industry is famous for cutting costs and deferring maintenance until the very last minute. So that could explain some of this, but whatever the explanation is, it's not good for our supply chains that are already breaking apart.
I have to say it does make you think. My biggest thought on this is the concept of nodes. The concept, what I'm talking about is a central station that, if taken out, can cause a system failure. While I knew very little on this topic, it's still something that has me asking questions and proposing my own theories, which I won't give on the air without any evidence. Now, that's something to think about. I mean, we can't really prove anything when we can't know something, and that's the issue. So, I mean, I look at this like,
Well,
do we truly have nothing to be concerned about with this uptick, or in what seems to be a series of coincidences?
well, I'll tell you what. It's certainly something to be concerned about, as I mentioned previously, simply by the sheer number of them, and the difference. I mean, there was that giant Walmart distribution center warehouse outside of the Indianapolis airport in March that burned to the ground. It took 350 firefighters to put out. Now that is something that's big enough to cause temporary shortages throughout the region, right? At the various different Walmart retail outlets. But then you start adding all this other stuff, and then it really starts adding up, Um, I will also say that just I believe it was the end of last week, possibly the beginning of this week, where the FBI issued an alert. And this is going to be a follow-up article that I write at pjmedia.com. There was a follow-up, there was an FBI alert put out about credible threats of cyber attacks on food processing plants. They are investigating this actively right now. So this is another thing that is, I mean, it just sort of piles up more and more. And like I said, if this were a normal economy where our supply chains were strong and we hadn't flipped the switch off on our economy because of a pandemic for 2 years and then flipped it back on again, thinking there would be no consequences, then, everything would be fine. But now any little stressor to the system causes ripple effects all across it, and it can really have a major effect.
And just to say this again, you were correct. The food industry was considered essential, so we didn't really send people home from the food industry. They weren't told to shelter in place.
Right. No, they people had to show up for work. I have family members that work in the industry that had to show up for work and didn't get a break from that. So it's again, the industry is pretty well known for deferring maintenance until the very last minute, so that can explain some of it. But at the same time, there's a lot of folks that were already there that should have been handling this stuff, and I just, there's no explanation that explains all of it at the same time. That's kind of the point I'm driving at.
And here's the jab I'll have at the delayed maintenance. Each one of those facilities has a U.S. FDA inspector. They inspect the food, and then you have OSHA on top of that, who is supposed to make sure things are safe. Okay, you have your work safety inspectors. They're supposed to make sure things are safe. Now, I mean, having been a management of McDonald's, I had a schedule of maintenance, and I'm sure that each one of these facilities has one. If you've ever worked in an industry or even something simple as retail or restaurant, you have something called a scheduled maintenance sheet. When things are supposed to be done. I mean, once a week, you're supposed to do this. On this particular day of the month, you're supposed to do this. So I have some serious questions when they're pushing things off. I mean, I get it when you can't afford things, but I don't know. I'm just kind of curious with that one.
Well, you also talk about the USDA having inspectors, and that brings to mind the idea. You talked earlier about nodes. A lot of these places are in the same area, like the Port of Vancouver, Washington, or the Port of Kalama. I used to live in Oregon. I just moved to Florida. So, all the deep water ports have a lot of these places in the same general area, right? Port of Portland even. And so you have all these USDA inspectors where all the plants are, right? So it's not like the USDA was told not to come into work, right? So they had to continue their inspections. This was a vital vital industry for the survival of our society while we were locked down on pandemic lockdowns. So the USDA was out there inspecting things. So it's just odd that all of these things are in the same general vicinity. There were several. There, you look out at Eastern Oregon and Idaho and Eastern Washington. There's a ton of potato farms and processing plants out there. So they're all in the same general area, and I'm aware of 3 or 4 of them that happened just in that general area in Hermiston, Pendleton, Oregon, and then in Burley, Idaho.
And my local Patriots group. I'm going to give a shout out to them. That's the Patriot Assembly of Monroe County, New York. We've been having a discussion on similar topics, starting with fertilizer issues. Back in November, we started to discuss how the fertilizer industry was going to go south. And this was due to numerous things that way before the concept of war in Russia came along, war with Russia and Ukraine. So we were talking about this, there being a planned food shortage. We've been talking about this. Actually, I would go back so far as last June that we were mentioning this. These were discussions that were given almost immediately after Biden took office, some kind of shortage. And you'll see they were actually trying to pass legislation to stop preppers. And that was another concern that came up. But does your research indicate anything about this fertilizer issue?
Yeah, that's something I've been keeping an eye on for over a year now, and I'm trying to, well, one of the reasons I moved to Florida was to start my own homestead and be more self-sufficient and self-reliant, so I didn't have to rely on all these supply chains because I didn't see anything healing anytime soon, right? So that's something that's been in my mind. I haven't necessarily had the time to track down all the research I want to do, but I have several friends in the industry that have been talking about fertilizer shortages for a long time. I mentioned in the article that the Union Pacific Railroad just shut down in March all new contracts with fertilizer plants in the middle of America. So there was a statement put out by a fertilizer company stating that this is going to cause way lower yields. And I can tell you that China has been building up. They've been buying a lot of American rice and grain and wheat for several years now because they've lost the ability to fully feed all of their people. There's several reasons for that. Governmental, mostly governmental incompetence, right? They built the Three Rivers Dam and that's about to fail and that's going to wipe out a whole huge swath of fertile land, right? It's going to wipe out our pharmaceutical industry. That's a lot of fun. So there's that. And then there's government regulations on what they can farm and how they can do it with factory farms and slave labor and all of that stuff. So they've been buying up a lot of the world's market of grain, right? Even before, we kind of knew Russia was going to invade the Ukraine once Joe Biden got into office, and we've known this for a long time, right? And it was pretty obvious. So we knew that was coming, but there were still, even before that, there were stresses on Europe's breadbasket. Russia and Ukraine are huge producers of both fertilizer and grain, right? So we know all this stuff. So and there have been other issues going back 2 or 3 years with the banking system being brittle right now. Its overnight lending program has been under great stress, and it never got fixed. And that only paused because we had such an economic downturn with COVID that the banking system kind of got a chance to breathe. But now they're back under the same stress that they were 2 or 3 years ago. And so there's a whole host of things that are going on right now that are leading to this systemic kind of, across the board weakness and brittleness in our supply chains, our ability to feed mass amounts of people and all of that stuff.
Well, does anybody else have questions for Jeff?
Yeah, I was gonna make a comment about the food shortage or the food surplus that they have in China. Have you heard anything about how much they have or how much they have stored away and how that is going to affect the other countries as far as the reduction in production from Ukraine and Russia, namely Pakistan, because that's the one it's like the second most populous Muslim country on the planet, and they have nuclear bombs. Kind of worrisome.
Yeah, no, the lack of stability overall is a little bit, it's, I don't know what to do about all that. But I've not heard the number or the amount that China has been stockpiling, but I do know they've been doing it for several years. I know that I think I saw the other day that they're buying 60 to 70% of the of some grain. I can't remember what it was. It was corn or soybeans or something to that effect. So that's putting a lot of pressure because it's a fungible good, but if one area of the globe is sucking it all in, then there's less available for the rest of the folks. There are localized droughts across America that we're seeing or that they're predicting for this year, which will lead to lower yields. And so it's an additive pressure, right? Let's see, what else? What is it? Ukraine produces something like 30% of the global fertilizer. And so if they're unable to produce fertilizer, then everybody's going to suffer. And then, then we see, like I pointed out in the article, when Union Pacific stops shipping that stuff in America, all of a sudden that's a huge shock to the American system. And then we can't even necessarily meet all of our needs. So to answer your question, Eric, I don't know the specific numbers, but I'm just looking at all these pressures and seeing how they're starting to add up, and it doesn't look good.
Didn't your article talk about, I don't know if it was Union Pacific or not, but somebody making rules that they could only carry X amount of fertilizer? I thought that was
trucking. Yeah, that's what it, yes, that was part of that announcement from Union Pacific that they canceled new contracts and they reduced the amount that they were able to ship. So right at the beginning of planting season in a lot of areas, there were going to be reduced levels of fertilizer available. So if you can't plant in April, then you're not going to have grain in August and September, right?
Wow, that's. And you have to sit there and wonder if that the purpose is to destabilize. I mean, the economy. My biggest thoughts on this has been that it's all targeted at the U.S. dollar, but it does cause a lot of questions. Unfortunately that's all that we can do right now is propose questions.
Right. I think it's not necessarily targeted simply because these people aren't. I think it's a additive pressure of incompetencies, right? The dollar is going to suffer. There's no doubt about that. And we've been adding, 80% of the dollars that have ever been printed have been printed in the last 2 years or something. It's insane. Yeah. So there's that. And then there's just regulations. There's, the WHO came out a month or two ago and said and warned. Was it the WHO or the World Bank? It was the World Bank came out and warned against hoarding. And Joe Biden's been out there talking about food shortages, global food shortages, and shortages in America, and warning people. And so now you take all that circumstantial evidence. It's not even circumstantial, just evidence. It's not numbers, but they know it's coming, right? So that's where you go, okay, these guys know something big is coming, and you better start paying attention.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Hey, Rad.
Okay. So, real quick, I'm actually shocked that, well, not really shocked, but we went from Build Back Better to there's going to be food shortages in a matter of 12 months, 13 months?
Not even.
Yeah. Yeah, not even the only thing. The only thing that has a sharper decline is Biden's mental ability. Um, other than that, but it's just completely horrible. But I came in late. Could you re-explain if you can? If you don't want to, that's fine. 2 planes hit food processing plants. Did I hear that right? I mean, that's what I just came in on. So
Yeah.
I mean, were they big planes, little planes? What happened?
They were little not even commuter planes, private planes. One was I forget what make they were, but they were it was a single engine prop plane in Idaho where this 30-something-year-old female pilot was ferrying UPS cargo from Utah to Idaho, and she was approaching the Burley airport and hit a smokestack and landed on top of the food processing plant and died. A week later, there was an airplane that crashed into a General Mills cereal plant outside of Atlanta in an isolated part of the plant, and burst into flames, caused this huge fire, and took a long time to go out. So it didn't do any damage to the production, but it was a very odd coincidence that you had 2 airplanes hitting these 2 food processing plants within the period of a week, just a couple of weeks ago. And there were official explanations that may or may not actually hold water.
Wow.
Yeah, that sounds weird. But either way, we're in deep doo doo, man. I mean, and we got 2 more years of this crap, dude. I can't. No. And then if we get rid of Kim, we got something worse come out. I swear they're like demons, dude. You know, you drive one out, you're gonna get something worse, man. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Depressing.
It's like a hydra, right? You cut one head off and 7 grow back.
Right. Good news. My favorite African American, Elon Musk, bought Twitter, so I made $300. So I'm okay. So it's
At least a modicum of free speech is back.
except my Twitter account is still locked, man. My new Twitter account. Seriously, I had it for like a month, dude, and I got 120 followers, and I was like, nope, you got too many followers. You're locked. I'm like, I can't.
Wow.
I have a lifetime ban on LinkedIn for sharing James O'Keefe's Project Veritas video of scientists saying natural immunity is stronger than a vaccine. I got a lifetime ban for that. So we can't say that's Microsoft.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah, from LinkedIn. And I don't have a choice. I mean, so it's not unusual.
And how many followers did you have, or how many?
I had 16,000.
Yeah.
I was approaching actually closer to approaching 18. And I was connected with counterterrorism experts around the world, and they've locked me out. And there's nothing I can do. You can't get a human to complain.
Oh no, but you can't get a human to take your appeal. But it's nothing but humans. They always blame it on the algorithm, but I guarantee you. I mean, I just saw an article this week.
I was
something
taken
like
down within 2 minutes of me posting.
Oh, but I saw earlier this week, Facebook has something like 16,000 content curators. So they are looking specifically at, your private messages, your private groups. I just got a restriction on a private group today where we rib each other all the time, rather inappropriately, but it's just a bunch of friends, and that group was put on restriction.
I run a couple of groups. They got restrictions for one was calling it fake. Somebody reported fake news, and what it ended up being, my thoughts are the person who was posting the fake news was the guy who was reporting it. So I ended up banning them, and then we don't have any problems ever since then.
Hey, Paul, I got to run.
Right.
God bless y'all. We'll see y'all.
God bless.
Be good.
Thank you for joining us, Jeff. We've been promoting your work on the YouTube. I hope you've been able to see that in the chat room. And just because we're also on Blog Talk Radio, just tell everybody how they can follow your work.
Yeah, I very much appreciate that. Thanks, Paul. And so my book is at whoownsthedems.com, and there you can also link to, if you go to the about page and the blog page, you'll see all my work. I write for pjmedia.com. I also write for legalinsurrection.com. I've been running the criticalrace.org website for the Legal Insurrection Foundation for the last year, where we've researched 550 something colleges across the United States and all of the critical race theory that they've been jamming into their curriculum. So that's been a lot of work. Let's see what else. I'm on Twitter at Charger Jeff, so it's actually worthwhile to go see me there now. And I'm on. You can also find my author page on Facebook at Jeff Reynolds Author.
Yeah. I recommend Getter. So that's I'm twice as much on Getter than I have. It's easier to grow on Getter. So I'm going to recommend that to you.
Yeah, it is. And then you can also change that setting now where you can get all your Getter posts to post directly to Twitter.
Oh, I hadn't even thought of that. I'll have to do that.
Yeah,
that's
a new setting. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, God bless you. Thank you for all your hard work. Please keep it up. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you having me on.
I'll have to have you back soon. God bless.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. Now, I have this next section I wanted to cover is actually on Islam and the destruction of women. And I call it the destruction of women for a reason. And we're going to get into that. The reason I'm saying the destruction of women is because I don't have a better way to explain what's happening. What I mean by that is what they're doing is highly, highly, highly destructive to women. I'm picking on that as the real reason I'm doing this, and I'm going to tell you why I'm doing this. And this is the thing. Again, we talk about coincidences. I think sometimes God has a theme that he wants. And, you know, that's the kind of thing where I'll go from I'll go someplace and they'll be preaching something in the morning. In the evening, they're preaching the exact same thing. I'm going to a different pastor and I'm like, okay, you know, same message. Maybe that was really important. So I want to get into what has me doing this. And let's just get this. There we go. And so here's why is the topic. So this began for me on it seems like something's missing here. There we go. All right. So I had felt this topic growing with me Saturday night with Usama Doc on Sunday. And then Sunday after Eric spoke, I was more certain this message was not only needed, but had to be said this week. So, and then I had a chance to have Jeff on. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do that the next week. But here's what happened that got me back on this. Yesterday, David Wood did a huge debate on Sharia. Now, this debate, a lot of it centered on the treatment of women in Sharia. And then there, again, today, there was an Abigail Essman published an article on the Investigative Project on Terrorism. That article itself, let me just see if I can't highlight that picture. In the corner, you have a picture there, and it's about Turkey and how they're getting rid of an organization. And that, I'm going to put that link. Let me see if I can post that link here in just a second. I'm going to post the link that's actually to the article, and I say use Google translate.google to get to it. Let me try this again. And this is actually important, and I'm going to read this article to you as I think it's kind of important. So just a second, let me put that in the chat room. You can look for it yourself as we're going along. So let me just get back to the screen so I can see it. And I think I'm here. Okay. So this is from Abigail Essman. At least one woman is killed nearly every single day in Turkey, usually by a family member or lover. more than 400 such femicides on record last year alone. Now, Turkey's government threatens to shut down the one organization that vowed to end this violence. So, what organization is this? ANFEnglish.com had the story on this. A closure case has been filed against the We Will Stop Femicides platform. The initials in their language would be KCDP. The association on Wednesday released a written statement on the closure case saying the following: we bring to the public attention that a lawsuit for annulment has been filed against our association for allegedly acting against the laws and morality. The judicial authorities claim that various complaints, petitions against our associations have created strong criminal suspicion. The complaint petitions in question, which are based on no concrete facts, claim that our association attempts to disintegrate the family structure. Moreover, a series of police records are added to the file, including investigations that did not even turn into a lawsuit and did not constitute a crime. Making up crimes against us with these unlawful and baseless allegations is unacceptable, even in terms of the existing legal order. We will urge the government, prosecutors, and courts to do their duty in favor of women. Good luck. You're in Turkey. Good luck. You're in Erdogan and Sharia land. Good luck. And I wish there was a better answer. So with that said, there is one additional article I want to share that got me going today. And I just picked this up, and this came out the 24th. This is from Morning Star News. Young mother knifed on Easter for becoming a Christian. This is Nairobi, Kenya. A young mother of 2 in eastern Uganda sustained a deep knife wound on Easter Sunday when her Muslim husband discovered she had converted to Christianity, sources said. Zania Gimbo, 26, of Sirenya Island in Lake Victoria, had put her faith on Christ on April 2nd, she said from her hospital bed in Bwanda. She had kept her faith secret when she went to an Easter worship service, and after seeing her husband, Jemaru Mwima, leave to catch fish on April 17th for their fishing business. It was a wonderful celebration, Gimbo said. At about 1 p.m., I went home not knowing that he had come back. I came back with a lot of joy, singing Christian songs that I had learned in the church. She was carrying her Bible. She said her 4-year-old boy was at grandma's house, and a friend was caring for her 5-year-old daughter. Immediately, the door opened, and then my husband came out very furious. He grabbed her hand, asked her many questions about her faith, which she did not answer. She then says, my husband beat and cut me with a long knife. I made an alarm that brought many people who came and disarmed him. She fell down, bleeding seriously, and lost consciousness. She sustained deep wounds to her face, head, back, and bruises on her hand. Christian friends took her to a hospital. Of course, this husband has disappeared. He was trying to kill her because she took a chance on Jesus. And you know what? She found joy. So this is the reason why I'm going into this today. And let's just start at the basics with this. If this is too small, let me know. I can grow it. Can everybody see this? Okay, maybe I'll just.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, you can. All right. I'm just going to make it larger just in case anybody needs a little bigger magnifying glass. All right. So this comes. What I'm going to read to you. And I'm going to make sure I'm going the right direction here yet. Sorry. Okay. So this comes from Reliance on the Traveler. Now, when a baby is born, you're supposed to propose an animal sacrifice in Islam. And this comes from J15.0, Reliance on the Traveler. Sacrifice for a newborn, akika, and name giving. And these are comments. This first little thing, the O, that whole parenthesis thing, that's all these are comments. Lexically, akika means the hair on a baby's head at birth. On sacred law, it means the animal sacrificed when the baby's hair is cut. Now, look at this. J15.1. It is recommended for anyone to whom a child is born to shave its hair on the 7th day thereafter, meaning any newborn, whether male or female. A baby girl should have her hair shaved and give away in charity gold or silver equal to the weight of the hair. It is also recommended when the baby is first born to give the call to prayer, the Adhan, in its right ear, and the call to comments, Ikama, in its left. Personally, I don't care if you say a prayer into a child's ears when they're born. Okay, they're going to save hair from a baby, cut it off, which a lot of parents do that. It's in a lot of cultures. That's not the issue. Pay attention. The sacrifice, J15.2. If the baby is male, it's recommended to slaughter 2 shahs that met Eid sacrifice specifications, while if the baby is female, it's recommended to slaughter 1. This means a female is only worth half of a male from birth. The person called upon to slaughter for a newborn is the one obliged to support the child. It's like a godparent type thing. And, my biggest issue here, if the baby is female, she's only worth half that of a man already. And it's established in Sharia law. Now, we need to think about those things. If it's established in Sharia law, we have a problem, because Sharia law cannot be changed. It can't be. So I've been working with Usama Dakdak, and that plays into this. This week, one of his big topics was the treatment of women and the lies being told in textbooks. I just happen to have this textbook. It's one of the ones that he's been going through. And I actually have this exact textbook, and I just looked at it today and added this in. So what do they say about the role of women? The Quran granted women spiritual and social equality with men. Believers, men and women, were to be friends and protectors of one another. Women had the right to the fruits of their work and to own and inherit property. Women had played prominent roles in the rise of Islam during the time of Muhammad. Is that true? No. So let's look at Surah 2:282. Here it says, "And call 2 witnesses from your men. So if there were not 2 men, so 1 man and 2 women, of those among whom you are pleased for witnesses, so that if one of them should make an error, the other may cause her to remember, and the witnesses will not refuse whenever they are called." Wait a minute. It says social equality, right? With men? How is them thinking you're mentally deficient equality? How is a woman's word not being taken at the same level of a man's equality? In fact, if anything, this is apartheid. This is a form of apartheid. Sexism, whatever you want to call it. Islamic gender apartheid. That's what this is. It's unequal justice. So a woman can't accuse a man of raping her. She has to have witnesses. No one can take her word for it. They won't even investigate unless she has witnesses. Keep thinking about this. See, we know today that there is biological evidence, and you could use that, but that's not allowed in the Sharia court.
Can I chime in here real quick?
Yes, please.
Yes. The way it seems to me is that the women, they should expect to be raped, so maybe they should start taking their friends with them.
And that is a lot of what Usama covered this week. They were told that they have to wear these hijabs when they go out with the Muslim women, when they go out to the bathroom. And, this is to protect them. Why? Because the Muslim men were raping the women on their way to the bathroom. Okay. So the Muslim women, the free women, were wearing hijabs. And they forbid the slave women owned by the Muslims to wear the hijab. So the Muslim men could just simply rape them anytime they wanted because they weren't wearing the hijabs. So it's something to think about. And again, I don't have that part there. And it's just, you're so right, Darcy. Thank you. And there's just so much on this. I'm going to keep harping on this. The Quran, this is what that Glencoe said. The Quran granted women spiritual and social equality with men. So this is part from a book that I wrote, the last book, The Cancer of Civilization, Jihad. I have a couple of quotes from that in here, but so it starts, there exists some who try to claim that Islam is a feminist religion. In making this claim, they state that Surah 228, claiming the rights of the wives with regard to their husbands are equal to the husband's rights. However, they do not share the context of this verse, nor the entire verse. This verse is about divorced women. So wait a minute. How are they equal to their husbands? Wait, if you're divorced, there's got to be some kind of disconnect here. Listen closely. This is what the verse is entirely. And the divorced women shall undergo without remarrying a waiting period of 3 months courses, for it is not unlawful for them to conceal what God may have created in their wombs. If they believe in God and the last day, and during that their husbands are entitled to take them back. Okay. Entitled to take them back if they have a baby. Oh, so now they're on equal grounds. Is that what we're talking about? They're both, because they could be parents? Keep thinking about this. And during their periods, their husbands are fully entitled to take them back if they desire reconciliation. But in accordance with justice, the rights of wives with regard to their husbands are equal to the husband's rights. We're only talking about divorced women, people, here. With regard to them, although men have precedence over them in respect. Think about that. All right. This is just, this is the passage. I mean, it bothers me that people don't tell the truth. And so, yeah, not telling the truth, are they? So, this is the joy of Glencoe, what's in your textbooks, Deceiving Children. All right. The Quran granted, again, it says, I'm just going to read, I keep harping on this. The Quran granted women spiritual and women's social equality with men. Really? Again, we have another passage from Sharia. This, again, from Reliance of the Traveler. The second integral is that the marriage have witnesses, is if not being valid unless 2 witnesses are present who are male. And this is a commentary. Since a marriage witnessed by a man and 2 women should not be valid. Wait a minute. So even 2 women are not the equivalent of a male? Not for a marriage. Unless you're in a Hanafi school of thought, which is Hanafi. This is a Sharia school of thought. The testimony of the following is legally acceptable when it concerns cases involving property or transactions dealing with property such as sales. So you can have these kind of witnesses. 2 men, 2 women and a man. So we keep hearing this endorsement that 2 women equal a man. Or a male witness together with the oath of the plaintiff. And then we have 024.10, 024.10. If testimony concerning that things which men do not typically see, such as childbirth, then it is sufficient to have 2 male witnesses, a man and 2 women, or 4 women. What? Yeah. Start thinking, people. What is happening here? So how is this equality? If marriage is witnessed by a man and 2 women are not valid, what does this say about how Islam views women socially? So what's the truth here? Is that textbook correct? How about this one? I mean, most of us can think about this. Think about spiritual and social equality with men. That's what that textbook claimed. Afghanistan is where the Taliban were. and they banned education for girls in the Swamp Valley. That hit the Washington Times. It was all over the place. Taliban militants were saying from January 15th, girls will not be allowed to attend schools. This is back in 2009. Oh, what is the first thing the Taliban did when they took over Afghanistan again? They stopped girls from being educated. Is there something in Islam that endorses this? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And what about all the feminist outrage? Where was that?
That is, there is a woman named Phyllis Chesler, Dr. Phyllis Chesler, who talks on this. And this is why the term Islamic gender apartheid, I steal that from her. She writes about this. They're afraid to stand up. They're afraid to say what's right. And the only people who were daring to do it were people who were there, who would see. I think the whole concept is probably repugnant to the average female, to the point where they can't accept that it's actually truthful. So, I get that. It's hard to accept things. My issue is that we can't be silent. That's where I run into problems. I just can't be silent. I just can't. So even Joe Biden at this time period would have said, "Give me a break." That's a bunch of malarkey. He wasn't as dementia-ridden at that point.
Right.
All right, I'm going to share a video here of this man and I have him in a memory vid. I want you to think about this. Muslims will tell you, "Oh, they give women all this equality," blah 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 blah. Wait till you hear what this man says about what he believes as far as women. You might be disgusted. I know I was. And some of these things you just have to stop and go, you can't really believe that, can they? Yeah, they do. Some of this stuff is just shocking. Here we go. I think make sure I've got the right one. Sorry about that. Okay. Yeah, I think this is it. The Prophet Muhammad said about women, "I have not seen anyone more deficient in intelligence and religion than you. A cautious, sensible man could be led astray by some of you," and so on. This hadith and others like it were misunderstood by the ignorant. Corrupt people interpret it in a way that differs from its original intent. Because of their ignorance, their insolence, their stupidity, and because of their enmity towards Islam and Muslims, they have turned this hadith into evidence that Islam disgraces women, diminishes her value, and describes her in inadequate terms. These hadiths provide some of the most decisive evidence that Islam protects women and guarantees their rights. Islam has surrounded the woman with offense and compassion and mercy. It has shown that the twisted nature of women stems from their very creation. This is how Allah wanted the woman to be. Therefore, the husband must adapt himself to her and be patient with her. He should not give her too many things to do, or things that she is incapable of doing. He should not make her do anything that is contrary to her nature and to the way she was created by Allah. In addition, he should turn a blind eye to her mistakes. He should tolerate her slips and errors and put away all the silly and ignorant things she might say, because this constitutes part of the nature of her creation. In addition, women have surging emotions, which in some cases might overpower their minds. The weakness with which women were created is the secret behind the attractiveness and appeal to their husbands. It is the source of women's seduction of men, and one of the elements strengthening the bond between husband and wife. This is one of the wondrous miracles of Allah. The strength of a woman lies in her weakness. Her power of seduction and her appeal lie in her emotions, which might overpower her mind at times. Both husband and wife should satisfy their spouse's natural urges.
وأن
and should
يجتهد في
try to
إشباع
gratify their
رغبته
desires,
ما
as
لم
long
يكن
as nothing
هناك
prevents
مانع
this.
يمنعه. ولهذا يقول
This is why the
النبي صلى
Prophet
الله
said,
عليه وسلم: إذا
when
دعا
a man
الرجل
calls his wife to
زوجته
fulfill his needs,
لحاجته
she must
فلتأته
go to
وإن
him,
كانت
even
على
if she is
التنور.
busy with the oven.
تصور
Imagine
التنور
this, there's a fire in
مشعل
the oven and she wants to
ويراد أن
bake
تخبز
bread.
عليه الخبز. إذا
But even
دعاها
if she
وهي
is busy
مشغولة
with this
بهذا
work,
الشغل
that
الذي لا
cannot be
يفوت
neglected.
يجب أن تترك
When
التنور
he
وتجيب
calls her, she
زوجها.
must leave the
وفي
oven and go
الحديث
to him.
الآخر
Another
فلتجيبه
hadith
وإن
says
كانت
she
على
must
ظهر
go to him,
قتم
even if she's on the
حتى
back of a
وهي
camel, she
راكبة.
must go to him. Think about that.
Oh my God.
Oh, what do you think about that? What do you call it? Misogynistic, sexist, offensive?
Yeah, don't they go back and read what they say? I mean, it's like, oh man.
No, because in his case, he actually believes absolutely everything he said is correct. And that's a little scary. I've got one worse.
Wait. Are you saying it's not? Because I agree with everything you said. I'm just saying.
Hey now.
I have real issues with treating women as deficient. I have a sister who should have her PhD. Only the idiots at the university decided not to accept her proposals because they were too political and would actually cause changes in the education system. Well, isn't that what the intended purpose of a PhD was for? To create and understand things better so we would change things in education? I mean, her work was outstanding. I was highly impressed with it. And the people who were fighting against her, I'd say their work was deficient because she was talking about changing the way things are done to improve music education. I was astounded because I'll be honest, when she was younger, I didn't think she was as intelligent. And now I look at that and like, holy cow. I mean, she could affect the entire country if they had just let her publish. She could have changed the way the entire country did music education. And I have a lot of friends that are females in many positions of leadership or technology or whatever, and I look at them and I'm amazed. They're doing things I can't do. They're more intelligent in different ways than I am. I mean, I look at Claire Lopez. I look at all these other great women that I know out there that are strong, and I listen to this garbage, and it just makes me upset. And yet we have a textbook claiming they have equality in Islam. That's what gets me upset. I'm going to share one more video that'll probably make Darcy go through the roof.
Maybe I should get a seatbelt on.
Yeah, put your seatbelt on, Darcy. This one's worse. All right. Okay. Okay, now hold on a second. I'm gonna.
اليوم العالمي للمرأة هو
Okay, so hold on a second. Something's not right here. Okay, let me get. Something's not right here. All right, let me try this one more time. All right, I'm gonna try and read it. I couldn't keep up before, and that's the reason why I don't have it. So hold on. All right, here we go. This is
اليوم
29.
العالمي للمرأة
International Women's Day is a day of
هو
celebrating the
يوم
women's freedom.
من أجل حرية المرأة إنها تدعر، إنها
To act like
تلعب،
whores, to playground,
إنها
to go out
تطلع
on the street,
وتصيح في الشارع، تروح وتسوي اللي تبي.
to do whatever they want.
إنما أنتوا يا
But the West
مسلمين
says, oh, Muslims, you're women, stay at home.
المرأة تقعد في البيت وتتزوج وتصير
They get married and they become mothers.
تقييد للحرية.
No, you are curbing their freedom. You are violating women's
اعتديتوا
rights.
على حق المرأة. إنزين احنا المسلمين لما المرأة تسافر لابد أن نويها
Muslim women must be accompanied by a male chaperone whenever they travel
يحميها من أهوال الطريق
in order to protect them from the horrors of
وأهوال
traveling.
السفر. يعني المحرم عبارة عن خادم
The male chaperones are the women's servants. That's BS, I'm sorry. They carry their suitcases. They take care of the procedures at passport control. And they protect women from harassment by other travelers on the plane. But no, International Women's Day says this is curbing women's freedom and enslaving them. The West says, let women travel by themselves without any male chaperones of any or anything of the sort. Give them the freedom to travel by themselves. Why don't you trust women? Give women their freedom, guys. Let them go out. Let them set forth. Let them go out. Oh, yes, set forth, oh women. International Women's Day is a day of setting forth toward freedom, self-realization, the fulfillment of femininity. What do they mean by fulfilling femininity? Removing the hijab. Remove your hijab, sister, be free, they say. Where are you going to walk around and remove your hijab and act like a slut? Not only can you remove your hijab, you can dance, make video clips.
وسوي فيديوهات وخلي عندك سناب وطلعي للعالم
your Snapchat, show your diary and your memoirs to the entire world.
في كل البرامج
And go on all the TV shows with TV hosts, work as an actress.
واشتغلي ممثلة وروحي رقصي في الفيديو كليب.
Go dance in the video clips. Yes, the West gives you the rights.
أعطيناك حقوقك. وروحي وكملي دراستك.
They say, go on, complete your studies.
في جامعات مختلطة يا
Attend co-ed universities, girl.
في جامعات مختلطة أنت قاعدة كتفك لازم.
There you will sit shoulder to shoulder with your male colleagues.
نعم وأنتوا تذاكرون مع بعض.
And since you are sitting together, your male colleague will see nothing wrong with touching you,
ويتحسس في جسمك.
or with fondling your body or exchanging kisses with you. Where the professor will stand with his back to you. You will exchange kisses sitting there in the lecture hall. Or whatever they call those chairs in some universities. Yes, take your freedom, girl. Set forth and get out and get to know your young men. Make love to them. Why bother getting married before he has made love to you? I will just love you platonically. What are you talking about, girl? Love him, copulate with him, date him, let him taste you. Let him see your body and get a taste of you. They say, is he really going to marry you without getting something first? Okay, so why get a taste? No, he should knock you up before getting married. You should bear him a bastard child. Go on, they give you freedom. Yes, freedom. Go on, they give you freedom. Yes, freedom. Take a look at the girls in Europe who sleep with 6 to 7 or 10 men. They get pregnant and they don't know who the father is. Eventually they go through hell. They struggle like dogs just to work in order to provide for their child, and they don't even know who the father is. You also say, yes, my dear sister, go on, go work in the army. The army, be a soldier, protect the homeland. Oh, you filthy dogs. Oh, women, do you know why the West, which you are defending, brought women into the army and aboard the ships of the Navy? A soldier that goes off to war, doesn't he want a woman to sleep with? The soldier in the Navy who spends 6 months on a ship, don't they want a woman? Do you know? So they brought women into the army and the police.
حققي ذاتك.
They say, find fulfillment, girl, find fulfillment.
كثير من الناس يقول لك والله انتم ما تبين نتعلم.
People ask, don't you want women to learn?
لكن ما تروحين تدعرين عشان تتعلمين.
Learn, dear sisters, but do not act like whores in order to establish law. By attending co-ed universities and co-ed schools, the filthy dogs want to turn you into merchandise. Listen to me, girls. What I'm saying is progress. And they are backward. They say that I do not call for women to work and study, so I am backward. If calling for women's honor and modesty is backwards, then yes, I am backward. If calling for chastity means I am backward, I welcome the epithet. Dear sisters, I'm not against women learning and gaining knowledge. But when the aim of gaining knowledge becomes the intermingling of sexes, sexual harassment, prostitution, boyfriends and girlfriends, that's when I say stop. This is exactly what the Americans in the West are doing. They allow women to study, go out in the streets and work, but not so they could study and work. They did this in order to turn women into very cheap merchandise. Your sisters, do not be fooled by the filthy, secular, mercenary dogs that surround you. They look just like me. They wear the headband. They look as if they were from the Gulf, as if they were Muslims. But they are dogs. By Allah, dogs are the more honorable than them. Dogs are loyal, but these people are filthy. They are not loyal to their religion or to the women of their country. They are selling you nudity. They are fooling you, saying, go drive cars, work as electricians, go study. And these are immoral aims that aim to sow immorality and to turn women into prostitutes, just like in Europe, where 90% of the children are bastards. So, Darcy, did you lose your temper?
No, this guy is clearly in love with himself. Just talk, saying whatever just to hear himself speak. I was actually rolling, which is so funny listening to him.
When you look at the stuff he says he's for education, but then he doesn't want women to go to a university and study because that's creating a whore or a prostitute. Yeah. He sees them, or you're sitting next to a man, you're going to be kissing them. Like, the only ones I know that have that belief structure are Muslim males when they're sitting next to a non-Muslim female, because in their belief structure, they're allowed to take advantage of that situation. And that's the issue. I don't even.
No, that's hypocrisy.
And he's talking about Muslim women. I mean, it's so, what he says is so degrading of women. That's what bothers me. And this is Muslims speaking to other Muslims. That's what these are recordings of. And when they tell us about their equality, they tell it like they really believe it, but they're so good at lying today, it's hard to tell. So you have to look at, what do Muslims tell other Muslims? And you have to pay attention. Do they think they're being recorded? Yes. Do they think that non-Muslims are going to see this? In these two cases of videos I just showed you, I don't think they thought anybody would get it. You know why? They didn't care if non-Muslims could see it if it was in Arabic. And it got translated.
I can see and hear the hypocrisy. You do this, don't do that, but it's okay if I do it. So
I can't help but get angry when I think of some of these things. That's where it gets to me. So I just want to get back into this thing where, again, they had just mentioned all these things about women being socially equal. Those two imams, I mean, one of them was a scholar in Qatar. It's just, it's just disgusting. I'm sorry. To say that women are socially equal in Islam. This comes from another part of my book. I'm talking about Bukhari, Volume 1, Book 6, number 301, records a hadith of a woman asking why Muhammad considers them deficient in intelligence. His answer demonstrates a use of circular logic, something Western culture calls fallacious reasoning, false reasoning. Another thing it does, you ready? Circular reasoning is a symptom of mental illness, so keep that in mind. Narrated Abu Said al-Khudri. A cautious, sensible man could be led astray by some of you. The woman asked, "O Allah's apostle, what is deficient in our intelligence and religion?" He said, "Is not the evidence of two women equal to the witness of one man?" He replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency in her intelligence." Wait a minute. So something you said is, yeah. It's so circular. There's no evidence, and you just sit there like, I mean, how stupid can you be to believe this? And
Yeah, but if he's a cautious, sensible man, he cannot be led astray.
I sit there and I'm amazed when I look at some of this stuff. I mean, all right, we go this next one here. How about this one? I took this quote from Dr. Sultan, Dr. Wafa Sultan, who is a psychiatrist, and she wrote a book called "A God Who Hates," and I like the illustrations from here. But again, keep in mind, she's a woman who grew up under Islam, and that textbook we read earlier from Glencoe said the Quran granted women spiritual and social equality with men. Now, wait till you hear what she's describing in Aleppo, Syria. Quote, "The journey, which took about an hour by bus, was a cruel one. The bus route passed through many neighborhoods, and only 10 minutes after leaving the campus, the vehicle would be packed with passengers like sardines. Most of the women on the bus, who never made up more than a quarter of the total number of passengers, were students, and their movements resembled those of mice trying to flee from a malicious cat. No sooner did a man get the opportunity to press up against a woman than his penis would poke her in her back like an iron bar. Shrieked complaints could be heard, but the sad fact of the matter was that the residents of the town regard the female students as prostitutes, plain and simple." Doesn't that sound like that gentleman a few minutes before?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he saying something similar? "Oh, I'm for education of women." Yeah. So, in truth, does this sound like social equality or male chauvinism taken to the extreme? Oh.
Yeah. Ugh.
So here's another.
I'm sorry to say, but if I had been in that situation with that lady getting poked in the back, my hand would have come down and just wham.
I think that's the right
Gotten
thing to
him.
do. I would have no problem with cutting something off at that point, probably. But yeah, my daughter, I would yeah, be standing right behind her,
Yeah.
whoever it
Yeah,
was.
Loretta Bobbitt.
So this next one, again, we're going back to this passage by Khudri. This is from Sahih Bukhari, Volume 1, Book 6, number 301. It says, "Once Allah's apostle went out to the Musalla to offer the prayer, O Eid al-Fitr prayer. Then he passed by the woman and said, 'O women, give alms, as I have seen that the majority of the dwellers of hellfire were you women.' They asked, 'Why is it so, O Allah's apostle?' He replied, 'You curse frequently and are ungrateful to your husbands. I have not seen anyone more deficient in intelligence and religion than you.' A cautious man could be led astray by some of you." The woman asked, "O Allah's apostle, what is deficient in our intelligence and religion?" He says, "Is not evidence of two women equal to the witness of one man?" He replied in the affirmative. So they're agreeing with him? That's the part I don't get. He said, "This is deficiency in her intelligence. Isn't it true that a woman can neither pray nor fast during her menses?" The woman replied in the affirmative. He said, "This is the deficiency." So who gave these rules? The mentally deficient guy? Yeah. You saying a woman can't pray when she's got her period? That's mental deficiency if you make a statement like that. And they're saying this was an easily accepted statement. No. No. I can't accept that. That's just me. All right. So now I do want to mention that's my ended rant. I've been holding that in, and I get angry that we have textbooks that lie to students. And then those kids take that information and they try to use it, and it's wrong. So what do? They tell their kids that Islam is okay. Why? Because we allowed them to lie to our children.
Mm-hmm.
We are still in Ramadan, people. So I do want to talk about that. This is we're at day 20. I think we're at day 28. This is, I want you to think about this. So far, this is for day 27. There was 141 attacks as of yesterday, and 855 kills. This week there was actually some right-wing attacks. And during this month, there was 3 right-wing or anti-Muslim extremist attacks and 22 kills. But let me just ask this: are there attacks by Muslims on Muslims during this time? Oh, look at that in the news. I'm going to share an article that's in the news today that shows this. Let me just pull this one up. There is an article in, I think it's Yahoo News. Just a second. And share screen. Tab. Here we go. Ramadan Bombathon. At least 9 killed by bomb blast on minibuses in Afghan city. It says by Quabad Wali. It came out today at 12:43 p.m. 2 bomb blasts aboard separate minibuses killed at least 9 people Thursday in Afghanistan's Mazar-e-Sharif. Police said a week after a deadly explosion rocked a Shiite mosque in the northern city. The number of violent and public attacks across Afghanistan has fallen since the Taliban returned to power. Really? But the Sunni Islamic State group has continued to target Shiites, whom they view as heretics. A string of deadly bombings targeting the members of minority communities has convulsed the country in the past 2 weeks of the fasting month of Ramadan. Oh, why is that? Is that because you're supposed to have special benefits if you kill someone during Ramadan? Thursday's blast occurred within minutes of each other in districts. So 13 people were wounded and 9 were killed. And these are Muslims, Sunni Muslims killing Shiite Muslims. And that's okay.
Oh.
That's okay because it's Muslims killing non-Muslims.
Yeah, and they don't care. As long as they get some non-Muslims, it's okay if one of their people got killed. That's disgusting.
Yeah, you sit here and you hear this stuff and you have to sit there and go, I mean, why is that okay? I mean, wouldn't you be protecting your own at the very least? No, they want to kill off. They have this claim that it's better to purify the religion than it is to commit jihad on the non-Muslims. They actually talk about this in discussions. The jihadis will get together and talk about it. They think it's better to commit acts of jihad on the Muslim on the heretical Muslims. They think they call it a Ridda war, and this is the scary stuff that they're talking about, purifying Islam, and this is where they're going, and it's scary, and that is the sorry truth about where we are at. I have a few more stories. Let me see. Oh yes, I don't want to miss this one. And I just got to get my mouse there. This comes out of Italy. I'm going to share my screen for this one. This one should surprise everybody. No, it won't surprise you at all if you pay attention, unfortunately. And some of these things you just sit there and go, wait a minute. But this, I'm using Google Translate here. Christians attack. Okay. Muslims consider us inferior, and it is controversy. Controversy? How is that? And he's waiting for this stupid thing to go. All right. The controversy breaks out of the case of the Copts attacked in Turin. The deputy of the Brothers of Italy, Augustus Montarelli, asked Lamorges to report to Parliament. The League thunders suburbs in the hands of extremists. It's by Alessandra Benignetti.
Benignetti.
Benignetti. Okay. I pronouncing that one. All right. Sharif and Abu Ezer, the two Coptic brothers who were kicked and punched last Monday because they smoked and wore crosses during Ramadan, are not only ones to have been scolded for not respecting Islamic law. In Italy, last week at Porta Palazzo, a dear friend of mine was cursed because he was drinking water in the streets, reveals one of the victims of the group of radical Muslims. They shouted Ramadan haram, to remind him that he cannot drink water during the day. Even his brother Nabil a few days ago came under fire again for the same reason. A boy, perhaps Tunisian, outside the same bar told him that Islamic law prohibits smoking during Ramadan, and this time he had to lower his head and adapt.
It's so fun to use Realtor.com. It's so user-friendly, and they have so many...
Just turn that, sorry. Okay. I mean, so they're telling you can't, they're telling the non-Muslims they can't do this stuff during Ramadan, but they're not followers of Islam. This is the stuff we need to pay attention to. They want us to follow their laws. They want it to be forceful. They don't care if we believe what they believe sometimes. They just want us to obey them. They are supposed to be the supreme leaders in this respect. It's tiring. I mean, I have to say this is tiring. Why do we as non-Muslims allow this to continue? Why do countries who know that there's such a thing as Islamic supremacism allow Muslims to come into their country and don't question their belief systems? I mean, how do you know they're going to tell you the truth to begin with? But if you at least have a sworn statement saying they said one thing and then they do another, you can now say, oh, you lied on your application and in your interview, we can deport you. You could do that at the very least. That would be a beginning, but we don't do any of that. I did have a friend who had some suggestions of what we could do for an interview. One of them was to have a flaming gay guy come in and hug and kiss a Muslim. And if the guy didn't react, okay, he could enter the country. But I'm sorry, if it was an average guy, they'd probably want to punch him. So I don't know. I'd have to agree with him there. So I mean, I'm not saying it would be the right thing to do, but it would be something I would be tempted. I would probably be tempted myself to punch him. Then there was talking about, well, you have an intellectual woman come in and she does the interview, and how he treats her at that point. You can use it as, oh, do you believe in equality of women? Do you believe that women should be free? Do you believe that women should be able to go to college? Things like that. Or do you believe in Sharia? I mean, these are questions that should be asked in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, people really need to start doing their own research instead of, just listening to the Muslims say, "Oh, no, it's a good religion. Our system was good. Just don't question it."
I love when they say their system is good to ask this question. Why did you leave your country? If it's so good, if Sharia is so good, you were in a country that claims that Sharia is the way the government runs. Why did you leave? Yeah, I usually don't get good answers to that. You have to challenge back. And that's the unfortunate part. We have to pay attention to what's out there now. I do. Why do I do this? Why do I do this every week? It's because your regular news media outlets don't do this. I do this because I think telling the truth is something the regular media outlets have given up on. They no longer tell us the truth, and I really wish they would. But
their bosses are telling them you have to report what I tell you to. I don't care if it's the truth or not.
Oh, and in the public schools, the teachers are told to use these textbooks, and they're supposed to contain facts. But as you've just seen, I mean, I got that out of Glencoe. I mean, I've got that textbook. Let me just see if I can show you. I've got it right here. I mean, I've got this textbook right here. And you think about that. That's it's only one piece from that book. My concern is if that's what we're doing to our children by giving them misinformation, what does that mean when those children become adults, that they have misinformation? How many other lies have we told them?
Yeah.
We used to be able to trust, and now we can't.
The one I can think of right now is the lie of evolution.
Yes.
But that's for another day.
I'll have to, at some point, I'd love to get my daughter to join me on the show and talk about her junior high experiences with that, because it still makes me laugh. On that topic, my daughter, she's always been like an A student, and she took biology in 8th grade, and she got kicked out of class one day. She came home and she told me, and I was like, "What did you do?" She said, "Well, the teacher started saying that we came from apes." So I asked, "What did that come from? Where did the apes come from?" And the woman basically got down to an amphibian. Where did the amphibian come from? The amphibian came from a fish. Where did the fish come from? The fish came from an amoeba. Where did the amoeba come from? The woman said a rock or a stone. Okay. She's supposed to know that one of the fundamental differences that we teach, in science class to elementary students is there is a huge difference between living and non-living things. So 2 days later, my daughter got kicked out. This is for the 3rd time, by the way. Every day she got kicked out. So the principal
she made people start thinking.
Couldn't get a hold of my wife that day, and called me at the school where I work and says, I'm calling. I'm thinking it's about my younger son. He's more the one to get in trouble. But no, it was Jennifer. And she goes on starts to tell this story about how Jennifer got kicked out. Says, I have a serious problem with your teacher. And here's why. Your teacher is telling my daughter that living things come from non-living things. She's like, "What?" I says, "Okay." And I explained the situation. I says, "Hey, my daughter's smart enough. She got your teacher to say man comes from a rock." So I think you either need to replace the teacher and get her some mental health, help, or treat my daughter with respect that she's due. I think you need to do that. And she's like, I will take care of that today. So we can't be silent anymore. That's what it comes down to. If you want to support me and my work, I say go to Amazon, pick up my books. And I'm going to play one of the advertisements for my books because that's the big thing that I could use for help. And I'm looking to do a few things, and I'm just suggesting if you do buy one of my books, please go on Amazon, leave a review. There's at least 6 or 7. Some of them are devotionals, but this is my last book on the topic of civilization. Civilization Jihad is affecting you whether you know it or not. This book, The Cancer of Civilization Jihad, has 20 chapters, and it starts out explaining what the hijra is, which is the word for migration. And from there, it goes on and it tells you many different things simply by asking questions, because questions are the way we learn. If you don't ask questions, you can't find the answers. Like I said, it starts out with questions. Chapter 2, are there irreconciled differences between the social norms of Western civilizations and those of Muslims in general? Islamic supremacy. That one's not a question. That's just it's a statement. Is there an Islamic social norm against telling the truth? Is slavery legal under Islamic social norms today? Are there racist social norms within Islamic beliefs? Is there an ethnic prejudice within Islam giving Arabs superiority? Are women considered less than equals in Islamic social norms? You keep hearing this social norms part of it every time because the question is, are these normal behaviors? That's what social norms are, normal behaviors. Oh, this gets a lot more detailed. Are women considered less than equals? Are Muslim women required to wear the hijab? Do Islamic social norms make men see women as intellectual equals or sensual objects of pleasure? Is child marriage and forced marriage part of Islamic social norms? Is there an Islamic social norm requiring female genitalia mutilation? Is it an Islamic social norm that non-Muslim women are sexual prey for Muslim men? Is temporary marriage an Islamic social norm? In other words, prostitution in many ways. Is there a social norm in Islam that gives a husband the right to beat his wife? And this goes on. Again, there's 20 chapters in this book. The question is, do you want to be informed? Do you want to see for yourself if the behaviors I'm talking about are really related to Islam? That's the real question. If this sounds interesting to you, please go to Amazon or smashwords.com and pick up your paperback or your ebook today.